Did you know that the antlers from cervids, which are things like deer, elk, and moose, are the richest sources of IGF-1 found in nature, as well as a whole host of other growth factors? Hello Kindred Longevity Lifestyle Designers, this is Zach here with SuperSelfLongevity.com. I feel like this video is overdue. I've been wanting to do a video or even an article on my website about it for quite some time on deer antler or elk antler, and it just feels like it's time to do it. I recently am working through a bottle of elk antler gold from Sir Thrival, and really inspired me to get this video up because I think it's something a lot of people hear about, but they don't fully understand just how powerful this one product is. As an herb, as a supplement, whatever you want to classify it as, it is one of the most regenerative and building products you can take. There's definitely times when it's much more beneficial to use, and then there's also going to be that sort of peak time after a certain age when I'd even suggest everyone over that age should definitely be using it, just for its regenerative and anti-aging effects. And if you have the means to use it when you're younger, then use it then as well. So there's properties in the antlers of cervids which have this regenerative capability. And by regenerative, I mean an ability for it to help your body regrow tissue. In other words, if you've encountered some sort of injury, if you have the wear and tear of the aging process, if you have anything that would have a negative impact on your body that breaks it down, these things that your body makes naturally, but the ability for your body to make these compounds and hormones reduces over time due to most lifestyle factors. So taking a supplement or herb or food that enhances and adds to the body these things that help regenerate and regrow tissue, it can be very wonderful. So the main thing that's going on in the extracts of antlers or antler products, if it's good enough quality, is going to be the IGF-1. IGF-1 stands for insulin-like growth factor 1, and this is the most concentrated source found in nature. Other sources are things like colostrum, and there's probably other ones. I believe deer placenta is also a source of it. And of course these are all animal foods, which from the Chinese medicine perspective have a lot more of that yang power behind them. So they have that sort of fiery, uplifting quality, which can be again associated with that anabolism, which is regrowth, which is something that a lot of people have diminished over time, or after they've been on a very strict regimen that sort of hacks away at the body's reserves, and perhaps didn't give your body the right building blocks to continue making enough of these regenerative compounds. So IGF-1 has been known to regrow bone tissue or accelerate its growth. You really need IGF-1 to have good bone growth, especially in youth. Kids that don't have enough of that can basically get osteoporosis later on in life. The next thing is, of course, muscle tissue. So increasing muscle mass, you need the IGF-1 in there. Of course, you need testosterone and all these other things, and they work in harmony. So that's the beneficial thing of a whole food or whole spectrum natural product like an elk or deer antler product, is that it's going to have a spectrum of things that work in harmony together. There's studies on isolated IGF-1, the synthetic form of it, that caused increased growth of cancer cells, proliferation in the body, and other things like that. And again, that's looking at a synthetic isolate, which cannot have the same application to something like deer or elk antler. There definitely needs to be studies on this and see if there is a connection to cancer or not. But for example, in past videos I've shown how colostrum can be used in the treatment of cancer or even post-cancer treatment. And since colostrum is also very rich in IGF-1, if we had that mindset of looking at individual nutrients, then we could also conclude that that would help promote cancer, but it's really showing the reverse effect. Another thing you want to take into consideration is the studies on fructose as an example. Isolated fructose, such as in high fructose corn syrup or other forms like agave syrup, has a very strong negative impact on things like the liver and increasing body fat, the storage of body fat. But that's not the case if you eat an apple. It's not the same concentration as fructose on its own. It's got a whole host of fiber, other types of sugars, minerals, and other things in there, water, that makes the fructose not do the same thing as when it's in isolation. So that's an important thing to keep in mind if you're sort of the skeptic on the IGF-1 front, saying that it's just hands down going to create cancer in the body. That's a very illegitimate way of thinking about it. A big thing in the sort of mainstream anti-aging community is the idea of taking human growth hormone injections. There's been a lot of research showing some questionable results from that, and there's been some amazing case studies of people taking it as well in terms of the effects they have, but we have yet to see the long-term effects in a lot of people. But one of the things that human growth hormone does in the body is increases IGF-1 production. So by taking sort of this metabolite, as opposed to this thing that's further up the line, the human growth hormone, you get the metabolite without the overstimulation of your body's own production of the HGH and the pituitary gland, etc., which is going to be the thing that produces and stimulates the production of HGH. So in that sense, it's a lot more natural, and you're going to have the anabolic effects that you would get from the HGH, but from a natural source. So that's why, in my opinion, elk antler products and other sources of IGF-1 that are whole foods are the ideal way to go. So again, there's also tissue regrowth with the IGF-1, and then there's also certain aspects of IGF-2, which is just slightly different metabolite. And IGF-2 is found in a lot higher concentrations in the embryonic and fetal stages of development in humans. So this is actually a very deep yin-jing effect, if we want to get again into that Chinese medicine classification, of unleashing this potential, which a lot of people have barely any of later on in life. So the idea of getting those benefits of the very fast regeneration we had in the womb is quite alarming in terms of being able to recreate that with something like this product further on in life. And that deep yin-jing quality is very unstable and depleted in many people, especially today with high-stress lifestyles and the genetic deterioration that's happening from radiation, poor diet, poor lifestyle, basically all this onslaught of very foreign things that are coming from the very synthetic environmental toxins. So there's also something in deer antler, velvet, elk antler, etc. that is called Ecto Saponins. These are the same things that are found in the tails of lizards that regrow their tails when they pop off, like green anoles and certain species of geckos. When attacked by a predator from behind, if it latches onto their tail, it'll break off and they'll regrow it almost to the same size and functionality as the previous one, but there's slight changes. I had a lot of friends with lizards when I was younger, and I remember seeing the regrowth at one point. I was amazed by it, but it was slightly shorter, and over time I think it got shorter every time, so there wasn't 100% regrowth. Then as a human, if you were to have your finger cut off for whatever reason, you're not going to regrow much of it. It'll basically just heal over and you'll have that stub left. However, with the use of things that are very regenerative, you might have a little bit more growth of the bone and the tissue. It'd be extremely unlikely to get your whole finger back. However, there are case reports of babies, newborn babies, who have had like the end of their finger clipped off for whatever reason, and actually regrowing nail beds or a part of their finger that, as later on in life, if that were to occur, that wouldn't happen. And personally, I'm just theorizing that could be a component of perhaps the IGF-2, which is something that was really depleted or doesn't occur or get produced by the body later on in life. So another species that produces a lot of these Ecto Saponins is the starfish. If you break off a leg of a starfish for whatever reason it gets cut off, the starfish will grow a new leg, and if there's enough of that leg that got cut off, the whole leg will grow a new body as well. So that's very interesting to consider when elk and deer antler contains this compound, or these compounds. There's multiple different types of them. Then of course there's a whole host of other growth factors contained within the elk antler and deer antler, and some that I'm just going to list off here are epidermal growth factor, platelet-derived growth factor, transforming growth factors A and B, neurotrophin growth factor, fibroblast growth factor. And just from the different names of those, you can kind of gather what effects they have in the body. They're more specific for different tissues, and you have the ones that have been found to increase the regeneration of the nerves, which is great for injuries that have damaged nerves in various ways, brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, limb injuries. Then you also have any skin injuries or burns. There's specifically growth factors that work on the skin. There's the ones that work on the immune system. So with the combination of the IGF-1 and 2 and this whole host of different growth factors, of which there's even more than I could list here, you get a net effect that elk and deer antler will have on your body. So this list that I've compiled here it's going to improve blood circulation, so it's a very warming herb or supplement, and it has that yang-jing quality. But in addition to that, it is a yin-jing tonic, but yang-jing is its main classification, but it's also a qi tonic and it's also a shen tonic. So the qi tonic effect is related to its blood building effects. It'll increase red blood cell count and increase your tissue oxygenation, which is great for athletes, of course. And that is how it also improves circulation. It's going to be getting more nutrients and oxygen to the tissues, and with the greater blood building qualities, you're going to have warmer limbs and extremities as well. You have the bone and muscle growth and increased health, as I mentioned. You have the bone marrow, increased bone marrow production. That's related to the blood again, but also as a Jing quality. You have the bone and joint regrowth. As mentioned before, that's also related to this collagen regrowth, which is also has an effect on the skin, this anti-aging, anti-wrinkle effect. You have the improved immune function. You have the regulation of cholesterol and the regulation of blood pressure. And again, that's working in with the blood health that this herb has an effect on. You have the improvement to eyesight and improvement to sleep. These are both Jing qualities. I mentioned the anti-inflammatory properties. And another big factor with the IGF-1 is the increase in metabolism, so that your body starts burning more fat, and you can reduce body fat with this product, as well as the proper diet, lifestyle, and exercise. One of the most famous properties about elk antler is its aphrodisiac effects. So this is the libido enhancing, all aspects of sexuality in terms of functionality and the actual ability to be functional during the act of lovemaking with your partner is enhanced by the use of basically most yang-jing tonics, which elk and deer antler are classified as. So for men, this can mean longer and harder erections, increased fertility, increased output of sexual fluids in their production, and all other aspects, being able to last longer in bed. And then for women, it can be increased fertility, increased levels of arousal, return of lubrication if that was something that was diminished. And again, we're seeing an improvement in all these different aspects of sexuality from the health standpoint and the making it become something that's more fulfilling in our lives. So that also highlights that elk antler and deer antler are very specific for both genders. It's not mostly a male thing, even though it's considered like anabolic. Perhaps in some cases men will be most likely to use more of it, but it's definitely up there for both men and women in its anti-aging and rebuilding effects. And then of course I also have the nerve regeneration on there. So that's a very long list of benefits that you can get from this one thing, which really shows how high quality and unique this is amongst sort of your typical herbs and supplements that have a range of 2 to 5, 6, 7 effects. In my opinion, Sir Thrival's Elk Antler Velvet is one of the most superior products on the market to get these benefits, and that is because, number one, just looking at it up close, if you've ever taken other deer antler or elk antler products, you tend to see a brownish gray color to them, and that's either because they've been sitting or turned into a powder and they've oxidized, or if they are in a tincture form, they're just gray just because they're stagnant, old, not as fresh, not raw anymore perhaps. And if you see this is a bright pink color, it's very concentrated. This is the gold. Some of the old packaging here, because up in Canada they haven't shipped the new labels up here yet, but it's a beautiful color really, and it's that nice pink, peachy color which you can tell means it's very fresh. So one of the benefits of getting it from Sir Thrive is also you get Myron glass, which is the violet glass. Very little light penetrates through that, and that has an effect of preserving the product longer. And I have actually finished a bottle in the past. I had gone through gold and even gone through silver in the past, and I don't think there's any left in there, but on the inside of this thing it kind of went brown after I left it open, after I was finished it. And that kind of showed to me that yes, you want to keep this in a really safe place, maybe even in your fridge. Not that over the course of a month or two it's going to go off, but if you get a number of them in a bulk order, then that would be a good way to preserve their shelf life. So the way you use it is you basically have a dropper full of the gold and of the platinum. That's a very concentrated amount. You could use half that amount per dose, but that's about 15 drops, and the dosage on the side does say 30 drops. So if you were to do it twice a day, that amount, you could break up that dosage into 2 parts per day. And so basically you've got 60 dropperfuls in this bottle, and you basically just take it, put it on your tongue, and you let it sit there for a minute to a minute and a half as the alcohol helps absorb the IGF-1 in through the thin membranes underneath the tongue and in the cheeks, and that prevents it being broken down from just taking it and immediately swallowing it. So there's a lot of things you want to have it absorbed straight into the bloodstream through the mouth, which bypasses the digestive tract, and that's an important factor. So I put it in and just kind of swish it around a bit. And then wait a minute to a minute and a half and let it sit there, and it'll kind of thicken up a bit because it does contain that actual collagen from the antler itself. So, pretty mild taste. I enjoy the flavor. It has that nice flavor of the grape alcohol, which is a great type of preserving alcohol for the tincture. For number one, the alcohol actually helps extract it into the blood vessels, and it's a preservative, and it's also, because it's organic grape alcohol as opposed to a grain alcohol, it's less likely to be tampering from GMO crops or other problems that could come from a grain-sourced alcohol extraction, which is something to consider when making your own tinctures down the road, or presently, is to perhaps look at switching over to an organic grape alcohol. So as I mentioned, Sir Thrive has 3 different levels of elk antler products. They have the silver, gold, and platinum now. Platinum's the new addition, and respectively with each one you have 450 milligrams of the elk antler extract, then 1,000, and then 1,500. So it's adding about 500 milligrams each level. The great thing about the platinum is you also have the added benefit of having tribulus in there, and that has a unique synergism with the elk antler, which helps increase the production of your body's own superoxide dismutase, which is a very powerful antioxidant which protects the genetic integrity of all the cells in your body, and then also glutathione, which has an effect of defending all the cells as well. They work in different ways, but they're both the 2 top antioxidants in the body for long-term health, longevity, and anti-aging. So that is a very good combination, and that's a good one to try out if you're in a very extreme state of wanting to elevate your healing time. Perhaps you're an athlete, perhaps you've been in some sort of accident. I've heard a lot of testimonies about people shocking doctors with how quickly they recover from broken bones, burns, etc. with specifically Sir Thrive's product. And then also if you're getting on with age, then the platinum's a good way to go. But if you're just sort of on a mild regimen and you're just wanting a bit of stimulation and boosting of these effects, silver's a good way to go, or the gold. The gold you can just use smaller amounts or less drops, of course, just sort of for that maintenance in there. And the unique thing about the elk is that it's a local product, whereas a lot of the deer antler products are coming from New Zealand and China. Questionable practices there too. In general, they don't kill the animal, especially with the elk. They're not harming it, but they do in those countries apply a tourniquet, and they also are administering painkillers, tranquilizers, which subdues the animal and also obviously gets into the antler, and you're probably getting a bit of contamination in that regard from the drug. So in my opinion, the best thing is the elk for both the locality of it. It's less shipping. The farmer that collects it, literally goes out in the fields and takes off the antlers from the elk. Once they're ready, and it's painless for the animal, it's like clipping toenails, and he has such a good bond with his animals, he doesn't have to tie them down or put them in pens or even worry about his own safety because they've just got such a good connection with him. And of course, there's Survival's products using the antler velvet from close to the tips, which is much more concentrated in these growth factors. The fact that it's a 43:1 extract means that they've taken 43 units of the product to make 1 unit of the final extract, which ends up in the bottle. So a 1 ounce bottle is going to have 43 times that amount, but actually when you consider the silver and the gold and the platinum, then so you have to look at the difference in dosage. But basically with the amount of IGF-1 or the amount of the elk antler product that's in each one, you just times that by 43 and you think that's a lot of volume. So it's actually a much better deal than a lot of the products out there that are a lot less in concentration. You might think, oh, there's cheaper products out there, but the unique thing about this is the extraction process and the way it's concentrated down to being very potent. And it's really shown in the effects and the effects I've experienced in my own body with taking it. So right now there's actually a sale going on at Survival if you're watching this recently after it's been uploaded until January 7th, 2012. And this is right at the end of December that I'm shooting this, of 2011. You can save 10% by using the coupon code New Year without any spaces, just one word. And you put that in at the end of your order at the checkout, and you can save that 10% on the price before the shipping. And this works for any of the products at Survival, so they also have the pine pollen, the chaga and reishi extracts, any of their other products that aren't supplements, the colostrum, and of course the elk antlers. And yeah, if you want to try the new elk antler, the platinum, that's a good time to get some savings on that. So to get that deal with the coupon code, go to the link below this video in the drop down menu, and then you go through and enter that code. And that way it helps me a little bit, which helps me continually make great content for you to read and watch online. So with that, subscribe if you haven't done that before, like the video, share it with friends and family, and with that, take care and embrace life without limits.